Hello everybody, this is Alex Hayes doing my second video for my new YouTube page. Haven't been on in a couple weeks, been really busy at work, so I haven't had a chance to. But just a few things I wanted to, scream into the void for anybody who cares. I don't know how many people actually watch this, but I know my wife and my mother will, so thanks guys for the support. A few things have happened the last couple weeks that I wanted to at least comment on, and if you have any comments or you want to engage on this, I'm happy to talk about it. I kind of took a break from Facebook debating for a minute, but it's too much fun. So if you have things that you want to say, whether you agree or disagree, please don't hesitate. The most disconcerting thing that's happened in the last couple of weeks is the continual discovery, that's the word I'm going to use, discovery of President Biden's classified documentation, which was, I guess, just put in a filing cabinet in his garage, which is pretty upsetting, to be honest with you. But what's absolutely hilarious to me is that you have everybody on the left throw a fit, and to the point where the FBI surprisingly raided a former president's house, which is completely unprecedented, and I thought a complete abuse of power. I know I'm biased and I support Donald Trump, but there's certain courtesies that you extend former presidents, just even if you disagree with them because of who they are, what they represented, and what they did, that you just don't do. And this was one of them. This was a sacred cow that got kicked over pretty hard. And now here we are a few months later, and it turns out that not only was Joe Biden doing the same thing, his was considerably worse. Now, we're probably never going to find out what were actually in those documents detail for detail, and that's fine. We're not supposed to, but it just goes to, again, show, as an adult, I learn this more and more every day, that don't throw rocks unless you're clean. Just don't accuse unless you know that you don't have any issues on your side. An eye for an eye. The whole parable of plank in your eye until the speck in somebody else's if you have a plank in yours. So I don't understand what the administration that we currently have, I don't understand their strategy on this, because they've basically just given the shoulder shrug. And I get it. They won in the primary, so they don't necessarily feel vulnerable politically right now. And I probably wouldn't either with what happened back in the midterms. But at the same time, you got to play defense to some regard legally. And the next president is going to have a very dangerous precedent that not only if the current administration disagrees with you, they can raid your house, even if they are guilty. That's a very, very dangerous thing, in my opinion. So that's been an ongoing thing, even as recently as 2 days ago. They had the FBI search President Biden's home and his different properties and continually find more things, which means he was at the very least negligent and careless, and at the worst, it was a sinister ploy to do God only knows. And that leads us into our next topic of, we have a president whose family who is 100% corrupt, and the Trumps aren't spotless. I'm not going to say that they are, okay? The children of President Trump have their issues, but you got Hunter Biden's laptop situation, which I think is going to be an incredibly incriminating piece of equipment for the next 24 months until the presidential election in 24, because you have Hunter Biden's paperwork trail showing $50,000 in rent being paid from him to his parents, which directly goes to Joe Biden. And I saw somebody posted on TikTok, I wonder if they declared that and paid taxes on that money, which I guarantee you that they didn't. But it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And now you have motive with ability and history all mixed together, and and he's the president. It's at the very least it's upsetting, and at the worst it leaves us completely vulnerable as a country. And again, I'm not saying that President Trump wasn't spotless, because he wasn't. That he was spotless because he wasn't. But it could be it could be the demise of the administration. It really could. It could lead to impeachment at the worst, or at the least, and resignation at the worst. I don't know. We'll see. But a lot of smoke there. The Illinois gun ban happened a couple weeks ago. That went into effect, and I am 100% opposed to what they're doing. And you have a lot of rural citizenry reacting the proper way, which is you have a gubernatorial administration and legislature who's threatening to not only fine and imprison, but also confiscate. And you got a lot of people who are hardened on the right saying, "Come and get it," and those two things can't coexist at the same time. So, something to keep an eye on in our next door neighbors here in Indiana. The debt ceiling is. I was texting a couple of my buddies about this and my brother the other day, and the debt ceiling is both routine and disastrous at the exact same time. We do this every couple of years, where if you don't do it, the whole world collapses in a matter of months, and if you do it, then it's no big deal. They reserve time on the floor of the House of Congress to scream about the limits on the credit card, and then schedule the vote, and then raise the credit card limit. So I think it'll happen. The United States in its entire history has never defaulted on its debt one time, and they aren't going to start now. But it's just astounding to me that we racked up this much debt. And to a degree, this is something that I disagree with some people on the right about, is that government spending does lead to growth in moderation, under control. We haven't had a budget as a nation in almost 2 decades. It's just been a free-for-all. And our children will pay the price in taxes, and that's just been the case for a long time, but nobody wants to stop the gravy train. And it's on the right and the left now. It's completely permeated both sides of the political atmosphere that we live in. I mean, you have President Trump dumped more money on the economy than any other president in history during COVID. And it wasn't really a question. It wasn't a problem. So just something to keep an eye on. And everybody screams about how we're in debt too much and how the interest payments and everything are going to bankrupt us. And to a degree, that's not necessarily true. But it leaves us vulnerable as a nation. So I wanted to spend the rest of my time here on the last 3 topics, which are the riots going on in Atlanta are bizarre to me. The whole concept of burning down your own community in protest is just insane, in my opinion. I think that if you're upset about something and you don't feel you have enough control in the situation, so you feel like you need to do something, and that results in a public display of that and violence, I don't necessarily condone that, but at the same time, it doesn't make sense. If I'm upset about something that my government's doing, I don't burn down my own house. It's stupid. It doesn't logically make sense to me. So riot, protest, throw a fit. You have every right to do that. You're a free American, and I support it, even if I don't agree with your causes. That's fine, okay? And we can talk about the causes in Atlanta and Black Lives Matter and all of those issues, and everybody has opinions on that, and I respect most, but it logically is almost hilarious to me that, okay, so we don't like what you're saying or what you're doing, so we're just going to burn down the entire city and every local business in the community that is probably in support of your cause, but then now they've lost their livelihood, so they have to leave. How does that help anybody? I think the obvious answer is that that's not the point. It's not the point to help people. It's just to throw a fit. So the Davos World Economic mess in Switzerland is what I called it, is patently bizarre. If you haven't watched or read anything about it, some of the quotes there by it's so unbelievable how far these people would like to take the world to the left, and it's a means of control. And I'm not a tin hat conspiracy theorist person normally, but it's pretty blatant that they're saying the quiet part out loud now. I've always appreciated the fact, and I'm not going to go into everything that is the World Economic Forum and everything that happens with it, but I've always respected President Trump, who went as the President of the United States to this event, which is literally a conference to discuss publicly how they can save the world. And it's all leftist ideas. It's basically a giant conference of lefties who want nothing more than to enact their version of the New World Religion, which is climate change and progressive ideas. And President Trump went in a couple years ago and said that the United States will never be ruled by an outside authority. He looked them dead in the eye, all of them, in a conference, the President of the United States, and basically said, I understand what everybody's here to do. You're wrong. and I disagree, and we will not be, respectfully, we will not be participating. And I've always respected him for doing that. The same way that I respected Bernie Sanders, believe it or not. I disagree with 99% of what he believes, but Bernie Sanders, during his presidential run, I believe it was in 2016, maybe 2020, I forget which one, but it was one of them. You can look it up. Went to Liberty University, which is probably the premier Protestant Christian university, which is probably 92% Republican, and stood there and spewed his ideas when he knew he was going to get virtually booed off the stage. I respected that. I don't necessarily agree, but I can respect it. The same thing applied for President Trump going into that place. So I'm curious to see what President Trump has to say about all of these things moving forward. But what's most interesting, and everybody, the hottest candidate for president right now is DeSantis, Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida. And I'll admit, I'm a fan. I do admit that I am a fan. I think that he's brilliant. He's got the best resume we've had in 50 years as a Republican nominee, in my opinion, maybe next to George W. Bush, just on paper. But what's interesting to me, and by the way, the primaries are a year away, literally a year from yesterday. The primaries in Iowa start, the caucuses. It's coming up quick, so prepare yourself for all of the TV articles. But DeSantis has played this exactly right, but the problem is that DeSantis' stock has never been higher, yes, but this is Trump's last hurrah. This is it. He's going to milk it for everything it's worth because he's got no more time left. He's too old. So I don't know that Trump would ever step aside, even if he lost the primaries to Ron DeSantis, which I think is a very real possibility because DeSantis is that good. And he basically has this persona, gives off this persona that he's Trump without the drama. Right now, that's the going sentiment. I don't know that Trump steps aside. And because of that, I think DeSantis may wait his turn, one more turn. I don't know. We're going to find out. But if he's going to announce, because Trump announced about 15 minutes after the polls closed for the primaries, if he's going to announce, DeSantis has to announce in the next 90 days, in my opinion, to get any kind of economic momentum to compete with Trump, because Trump's war chest and his ability to govern, he's a former president, is going to be a tough wall to climb, in my opinion, but we'll see. So anyway, this has been a little bit longer than the last one, but if you're interested in hearing more, like, subscribe, comment, whatever. I appreciate anybody listening to this. I don't know how important this is in your day, but I really do. I appreciate anybody who's listened this long. So anyway, have a good day. Thanks, guys.